Well, good morning. It's November the 24th, 2025, and straight from the highly caffeinated studio, this is According to Willie B. And I am your host for the next half hour or so, give or take a minute or two, depending on how many rabbit trails I get off into. But we still try to keep it under that 30-minute mark. Now, so as you know, we're doing the 10-part series of the Great BFF Trip, and we're getting close to wrapping that up because today is part 8, where we arrive in Boston. That's right, Boston, Massachusetts. I'll say this about Boston. You know, you go to Boston for the lobster rolls, you go to Boston for the history. You know, there's a lot of things you go to Boston for. Now, what do you stay in Boston for? Well, you stay in Boston because you can't figure out how to get out of the city because the roads were designed by someone chasing a loose cow back in 1764. I kid you not. That is the absolute worst traffic patterns. I've driven in New York City now. I've driven in Paris, France in 4 o'clock traffic. And I've driven in downtown Philadelphia. Nothing will prepare you for the chaos traffic wise in Boston. I'm not even kidding. If I were you and you want to go to Boston, fly in, take an Uber, and don't put your life in your own hands. Put it in somebody else's. It is what it is. So we drove from Portland, Maine, over to Boston. And so if you remember me telling you last week that we borrowed a couple of hours from the Boston trip because we had planned from the very beginning to have 2 full days in Boston. That's what everybody said we were going to need. Well, we borrowed a couple of hours, actually more than a couple because we didn't wind up in, I think we left Portland, Maine somewhere around noon ish, and it was about almost a 3-hour drive over to Boston. So, but we were okay with it but we had such a great time in Portland, Maine, and all of us want to go back. I was told because I mentioned how bad I wanted to go back to Portland, and I was told by the rest of the group that I am not allowed to go back without them. And I said, oh, I can understand that because Portland was really cool. But we got sidetracked. And as I've told you, when you plan a trip, be prepared for little side roads or be prepared to change the plans at the last minute. So they wanted to check out Salem, Massachusetts, because we were going to be going right by it. And I'm not saying that you should not go check out Salem. There's a lot of maritime history there. There's also the history of the witch trials back in the 1600s. So if that's your thing, by all means, go check that out. Because each to his own, right? So, but here's the thing. If you want to check out the town in a normal way, do not, and I cannot stress this enough, do not go in the month of October because it basically is Halloween all 31 days. And it's I'm trying to be nice in my descriptive words because I know there's a lot of people that really enjoy that type of thing. Okay, and I'm all for everybody, having their own likes and dislikes. That's what makes this a great world because we can each have our own likes and dislikes. Not everybody likes chocolate ice cream. Not everybody likes bacon. I honestly don't know who those people are, but I'm sure there are some. But what my point is, it was just a really different vibe. It was eye opening. Let's put it that way. And I'm trying to choose my words carefully because the one thing I don't want to do is if there's someone that listens to this show and I don't want to hurt their feelings, if that's their sort of thing, by all means. But now I would say that Salem would be a really cool town to go check out, just not in the month of October because it gets really, really crazy. And I've been to Vegas and I've seen stuff that I had to wash my eyes out. There was we saw stuff in Salem. I don't know if I can wash those memories out of my brain for what we saw. It's yeah, it was different. So but by all means, if that's your thing, go check it out. It was. I can honestly say, well, I've been there and done that now. But if like I said, I would be interested in seeing it on a normal month when it's not Halloween and you have all the hunting festivals and you have all this other stuff. I mean, let's just say that some people take costumes very seriously. So there's that, and there's more. And if you want to know more, just Google it, and you'll get an eyeful. So I'm just going to leave it at that, and we're going to march on. So we did. We took a little side road, and we went through Salem. We actually parked and we walked around because we were trying to see some different things, and the town was so packed. It was unreal the amount of traffic, and so you couldn't. It's like almost gridlocked. You couldn't get around. So once we got into the town, we almost didn't get out of the town. So we didn't arrive in Boston until late afternoon. It was, I would venture to say, if I remember correctly, it was probably around 5:30, probably more closer to 5. And the reason that's important is because we checked into a place called the Copley House. That's where we stayed. Now, Copley is well known for being, let's just say, the upper echelon of places to live. You're going to think I'm making this up, but I'm not. I saw a German Shepherd walking down the street of Copley Square wearing a sweater. I would almost swear that dog owned real estate in that town because of his confidence walking. And that I'm telling you, I can't sell this enough. Copley Square was the place to be if your tax bracket was also the place to be. It's a very expensive area, but it's absolutely beautiful. The buildings, the architecture, it's just really neat. We enjoy staying in the area. Now, once again, this was it wasn't really a hotel. It was more like, I guess, almost like apartments. And it was, they had renovated some of them into short-term rentals, like for almost like a hotel room, if you will. So it was really cool to stay there. Just understand that there are no elevators. Once again, I don't know, for the love of Pete, I do not understand what some of these places have against elevators. They make things so much easier. But I digress. That it was the way they planned it out, and there was no elevators. There was more stairs. So, wow, it was crazy. But we really enjoyed our stay there. It was very nice accommodations because of the area of town that it was in. So I will say that we were getting hungry. So it was early enough that we walked over into town, and because it was probably about a 10-15 minute walk. But there was a place that we all wanted to eat, and it was called the Union Oyster House. Now, it is the oldest restaurant in the United States. And, we were all very curious to see. I mean, if you've ever heard of it, let me know, because it's a lot of people know about the Union Oyster House. I mean, it is super famous. But we went there for dinner, but we were early. We were early enough, and we had to wait for a table because they stay busy. So they had the Union Bar right outside, and it was a nice evening. It wasn't cold, so we decided to sit out on this patio at the Union Bar and have a couple pre-dinner drinks and before our dinner. I do have one confession to make, and I hope somebody that is from Boston could clarify this for me because me being a foodie, okay, so I know what pie looks like. So when you and now you know where I'm going with this already. If you're from Boston, so a pie is round. You take pumpkin pie, pecan pie, chocolate pie. They're round, and you cut them into triangles and serve. We also have desserts called cakes, and those are different. Those are cakes. Boston seems to be confused because they're famous for a dessert called a Boston cream pie. No, it's not a pie. It's cake. It I was literally confused. I'm like, I knew that here in the South, if you order Boston cream pie, that's what they always give you, and you're like, you messed this up. I ordered pie, and this is cake. But going to Boston, I'm like, okay, finally, I'm going to get to have a real piece of Boston cream pie. And I had it in my mind of what this pie should look like. And I could not be further from the truth because it was not pie, it was cake. Now, don't get me wrong, it was extremely delicious, and it could be extremely habit forming. I will tell you that. I just it's just not living up to its name because it's cake. I mean, Boston cream cake. I don't. I think that would be a great name for it, or they could come up with another name. But I mean, I know you think I'm going off on a rabbit trail here, but I'm really not because as a foodie, that confused me. That's Boston cream cake, not Boston cream pie, but it was very good. And the food at the Union Oyster House was absolutely unbelievably good. We kind of wondered going into it, was this going to be like a tourist trap type thing where, yeah, it's the oldest restaurant, but no. If I went back to Boston again, that would be a place that I would go to eat again. The food was that good. Service was absolutely outstanding. It's just, and I mean, they're like a well-oiled machine. And the size of this restaurant, because you can go up a couple flights of stairs and there's, I don't know how many different rooms that place has, but you could get lost in there, which now that makes me think it has a lot of similarities to the streets of Boston because you can get lost on those streets as well. That was the craziest traffic pattern I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, I drove in New York City, had no problem. I drove in Philadelphia, had no problem. Boston? Come on. We got to do so. We need to fix the pie and we need to fix the streets. That's the two things we need to fix. But we did really enjoy our dinner at the Union Oyster House. The seafood was absolutely to die for. The service was, I mean, just outstanding. I cannot say enough good things about the Union Oyster House. I would definitely put that on your radar if you go to Boston because it's definitely a must-do and a must-eat. Now, we had kind of came up with a little idea at the last minute where for the next day they have, I don't know if you've ever seen these, and I'm going to explain it for you, but it's called the Ducks, and you ride the Ducks. Now, they have them in Branson. They have them, I believe there's some in San Diego. There's some in Massachusetts, obviously, or Boston. And there's several across the U.S. And what they are is they are old military amphibious water vehicles that you can drive on land because they have wheels, and then you can just drive the thing straight into the water, and it's basically a boat on wheels, if you will. And so they had the ducks there, and so they ride you around town, and it's probably about a 35-40 minute tour around town. And so you get to see some different sights that way, and then of course you go and drive off into the river. And we were going to try to see if we could get tickets the next day for that, but they were completely booked. I'd never seen that before, because they usually, all of these the companies that run the ducks, they normally have enough of the vehicles to accommodate whatever crowd size they have. But unfortunately, evidently this was a extremely popular attraction in Boston, and they were sold out for the next 3 days straight. I was like, wow, that's absolutely incredible. But we enjoyed the Union Oyster House. The one thing that we did while we were in Boston that was probably my favorite thing of everything that we did, and I don't know if you ever watched the show Cheers, but that was one of my favorite shows growing up, and so we had to go to the Cheers bar. And I kind of expected that when I walked in, everybody would know my name, just like the song says, but they did not know me. Nobody did. So that was a letdown, because I really thought that everybody would know my name there, but nope, they didn't. But we still had a great time. Got a souvenir mug. It is definitely I would almost classify it as a tourist trap, but in a good way, because if you are a huge fan of the show like we were, it was cool just to walk down the street and see the Cheers sign just like it looked on the show, and walk down those steps into the Cheers bar. So it was super cool. Had a super cool vibe to it. You definitely felt like you were at the Cheers bar. It looks a little bit different, of course, because the one on TV was actually a stage, but it was super cool. It was definitely a bucket list thing for us to do. So if you go to Boston, you definitely have to do the Cheers bar, if you were even remotely a fan of that show. But it was really cool. But there'll be. I'm gonna hang on to the rest for the second day, because like I said, we were supposed to have 2 full days in Boston, but we basically had a day and about a third. And but we still got to do a lot of stuff. The one thing I think we were all a little bit disappointed in was that we didn't make it over to Fenway Park. We were wanting to go to Fenway Park for nothing more than a photo opportunity, but our time was just running out. I mean, we were gone for 10 days, believe it or not. Our time was still running out, and it felt like it was running out very quickly. Don't get me wrong, we were all very tired, but we were having the time of our life, and this trip was absolutely phenomenal. It was a lifelong dream trip for anybody, but we definitely enjoyed it. But I'm gonna hang on to the rest of what I have for Boston. That one full day in Boston that we have, I'm gonna hang on to that. Now, see, there's another word salad. So, and I'm not even on a diet, and I'm having all these word salads. But I'm gonna hang on to the day 2 for next week, and we'll cover that in episode 9. And then episode 10, I got some emails the other day asking me, well, if the Boston trip is going to wrap it up, what is episode 10 about? Episode 10, you're going to want to hang on to your hat, because I'm going to be covering a lot of what it cost to do a trip like this, what you can expect to pay in hotels, what you can expect to pay for a day in food, what you can expect to, you get the idea. So we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls, some of the challenges, some of the, unexpected curveballs that were thrown our way, just kind of some behind the scenes stuff. And we'll talk about that in episode 10. But until next week, when we cover the last part of Boston, I will see you next week right here behind this big old mic in the highly caffeinated studio. And speaking of that, whatever you do not forget to caffeinate and conquer. And I will see you again next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.